Good morning, everybody. It's time for the International Pulpwood Queens and Timber Guys Writers Club, and we have a real treat in store for you today. We have one of our authors, Johnnie Bernhard, whose last book, Sisters Under the Undertow, Sisters
On the Undertow.
Yeah, right. Under the Undertow is here with us today, and she has a wonderful writer's presentation that she did at the Pat Conroy Center and other Words and Music, and we are very excited to have our authors mentoring to other authors this morning for a writer's club. So I would like to introduce Johnnie Bernhard. You may have seen her featured on TEDTALK for women. I am thrilled to have you here, Johnnie. Welcome this morning.
Good morning, Kathy. Good morning, authors. It's wonderful to be here. Many of you in the audience this morning supported this PowerPoint presentation with other nonprofits during 2020 when they were having a difficult time being shut down during COVID. So thanks for joining me again. This is a combination of things I've learned in master classes with published authors, as well as my years of teaching advanced placement English for secondary students. I also taught this in a 6-week course at the University of South Mississippi for writers that were looking for encouragement to becoming published authors. So I hope everyone gets something from it. Please don't be shy with your questions. I may not have all the answers, but I may be able to refer you to a work or an author or a website that may provide you with that answer. Thank you, Mandy, for steering the bus this morning. We're going to talk about the difference between developmental editing and copy editing. It's very important, especially if you are a writer with a manuscript and you want to begin shopping for an editor to help you. These are two very different types of editing. Okay, so I always think the more we know when we begin something, the better off we are. This is my website. Sometimes I write small articles. With my published authors with us today, you may find a writers group, a reading club that you want to connect with through the different blogs, or different organizations that I work for and support. So I hope it offers you some information that is useful. I love this. Stephen King. I'm not a horror genre fan. However, he wrote an excellent book called On Writing. I read it. I absolutely loved it. I learned so much from it. He's a very funny man. But I think Stephen King has it exactly with that quote. The great thing about writing, as many of you know, as authors, it's fun to write, but that editing is grueling. It's hard work. You have to approach with fresh eyes. You know, many of us as authors, we could sit down and write what we're feeling when that muse calls us, and we may write for 3 or 4 hours uninterrupted. But the real editing, the hard work, I find that I can only do that for 30 minutes, maybe an hour at a time, and then to stop and begin again. I was very fortunate several years ago, oh my goodness, maybe 2014, I attended a writers' conference where Stephen King's first editor was presenting. And I was trying to find out everything I could learn about plot, how to move the plot from scene to scene, from character to character. And he gave this tip, and it worked for me. He said, go home and watch your favorite movie. And at that time, my favorite movie was Sling Blade. And I watched that movie technically, not for enjoyment, but technically, as each scene unfolded, as the characters became more developed. It's a very sequenced project, just like a novel is. That helped me so much in plotting out a novel. It was the click for me. You might want to try it. It's a fun thing to do. So if we move on, this is another part of developmental editing. And thanks for joining us, Robert. It's good to see you this morning.
Good to see you.
This is when you may get from an editor, an acquisition editor, a publisher, where they write and critiquing your manuscript, you're telling me too much. You're not showing me anything. You have to show the reader. You have to bring the reader into each scene where they could visualize what happens. And to me, this is the perfect example. Don't tell me the moon is shining. Simple sentence, nothing truly creative about it, but show me the glint of light on broken glass. That's what a developmental editor and that process can help you find in your writing. So what does developmental editing do? It improves the structure of a manuscript, improves the plot, setting, character, narrative pace, dialogue, and the tension. All those things that make the reader want to turn the page. It may begin as the first draft or a strategy, planning, an outline. You know, as authors, we all have our different way of approaching a manuscript. Developmental editing may continue during several drafts. Mandy? This is very, very important if you are working on a work in progress right now, or maybe you've done everything you can as a writer and you want fresh eyes to look at this, and you're looking for a developmental editor. The key is guiding the writer and improving his or her craft without losing that author's unique voice. Very, very important, because without that, that editor is disrespecting you as the author. Literary elements within fiction that help improve the manuscript during developmental editing. There's plot, and plot is scene structure, scene breaks, the all-important first chapter, and authors, that's why that first chapter is so hard to write. You have got to capture that reader's imagination in the first sentence, that first paragraph that's going to make them read on to chapter 2. So in that first paragraph or first chapter, you're teasing at what's going to happen in this novel without giving it away. You're introducing your protagonists or major characters. You're making a toe dip into the setting and the theme. Thank you, Mandy. And pardon me, I do not mean to be arrogant in using the setting of A Good Girl. It's just that my publisher and I have the copyright, and I don't have the copyrighted permission to use anyone else's work. And so if we'll look at this paragraph as a way of defining setting, and there's many ways you could do this. This is, I hope, audience, I hope I'm inspiring you to get excited about what you're working on. Okay, as sadness seeped through the hospital square structure, the same sadness that engulfed the town. wide open and gray, Victoria, Texas served the oil fields. It fanned itself through a few remaining family farms and ranches into an encroaching web of commerce and box stores. A past of cowboys and cattle declined in 150 years to a concrete jungle of apartment complexes and used car lots, all to accommodate the masses feeding from the same bloodline, oil. That is a way to show instead of telling what the setting is. And I'll be very honest, and I hope to always be with other authors and writers hoping to get that book published. That took a long, long time to write that paragraph. Many, many drafts. And it's just hard work. Okay, Mandy? Okay, other literary elements to consider in beefing up that manuscript. So there's mood. And I'm turning the page of my document as well. So with mood, this is extremely important in creating the emotion within scenes. You could create it in a poem preceding the first chapter or a very powerful quote. There's many, many ways you could create mood. Style, the diction and the syntax, that's the style of the writing, the phrasing, the choice of words, syntax, plays on English, subject-verb agreement. You know, many of you, and I've read your works, Robert, I have not read your book, but it's coming out and I'm looking forward to reading it. All of you, and Kathy, speaking to your book as well. Oh my gosh, style. And to me, this is when you know you're reading someone of worth. An author's style is unique. It's something you can't learn, you can't borrow. It is simply there. It's a part of your makeup. It's your talent. And that's why when I referred to earlier, working with an editor, if they're editing your style, if they're getting rid, he or she is getting rid of your unique voice as an author, move on. They're not being professional. Okay, the next part that is very important, there's many ways you can approach this. The narrative mode, how you're telling this story, that point of view. It could be in first person. Now, I've written 2 novels in first person. To me, it is easier than third person because I immediately let that protagonist tell the story. And I think it allows the reader to become very intimate with that protagonist. That intimacy is established immediately. I've written a novel in third person. That was A Good Girl. And many of the great authors, Hemingway, Fitzgerald, all of that generation, Flannery O'Connor, they're all writing in third person. Now, I found that as a writer very, very difficult. You have to pay attention. Now, the thing it does for you as a writer, third person, that omniscient point of view, you are able to get into the head, the psychological makings of every single character in that manuscript and make a profound comment on that. That's the beautiful thing about it. Now, this fourth novel I've been working on for a while, I branched off. I was encouraged by reading other authors. Jesmyn Ward, she's been the only American author to win the National Book Award twice. And I get excited about her because she is this beautiful young Black woman whose mother was a maid that worked for a very wealthy community, probably 40 minutes from where I live, called Pass Christian. And Claire, is a reference for our mutual friend Nancy, that's next door to where Nancy's living in Waveland. And so Pass Christian historically has been a vacation spot for the wealthy of New Orleans. They wanted to live since the 18th, 19th, and the other centuries. They wanted to escape the heat of the city and have a nice open home with a large veranda right on the Gulf, and that's Pass Christian. So here's Jessamine Ward, who occasionally helped her mother clean these houses. The people that her mother worked for saw her talent and paid for her private education at a high school in Mississippi, and went on to help her with college. And she becomes this amazing author who spoke at many a prolific writer's funerals. She did a editorial piece for Time magazine. I just think it's so exciting to know you could come from anywhere, and with a raw talent that people support, you could go anywhere with that. And we all have unique stories, and sometimes it happens at 50, sometimes it happens at 30. And that's a long drawn out speech, and I'm quite a talker, so thank you for your patience. But she writes in third person, or in multiple point of view, excuse me, her last two novels. And another Mississippi writer, Monrose Glenn, wrote her last novel in multiple point of view. So I did that for the fourth novel. It hasn't been published, and it was very difficult. But the reason why I did it, that means each major character within that manuscript has their own unique voice. It's because I'm writing about Mexican nationals, citizens of Mexico, and where they live in Mexico. And I wanted to give honor to that unique voice and that unique culture. So that's why I did it. And I had a lot of people to help me along the way. Several of them were Mexican nationals that when I sent it to them, oh my gosh, spank. But you know, you got to put yourself out there, because if you can't handle that with your ego, you're not going to grow as an author. And I'm grateful for that time they spent with me. Okay, so we'll move on. Thank you, Mandy. So you could create mood again with the setting, the characters, introductory poems or quotations. Mood is so important because you want to intrigue that reader. Okay, mood and introductory quotations. Okay, in Sisters of the Undertow, which has a very intense underlying theme, hence undertow, and a lot of symbolism with water. It's about the hand that fate can deliver, period. You know, like you're swimming and everything's good, and all of a sudden you get swept away by an undertow. You can't see it coming. You never expect it. And I think each of us, particularly in this past year, can say we've all experienced undertows. So the redeeming quality of a sister in the novel is that she has an ethereal sense of wisdom. And so I use this quote as an introduction, just to pique the reader's interest, just to create a mood. Wisdom is brilliant, she never fades. By those who love her, she is readily seen. By those who seek her, she is readily found. So just a way of piquing that interest, setting a tone or a mood for that novel. You know, the thing you need to worry about as an author, please consider the copyright and the public domain. That copyright law is very important. I wanted to use half of a sentence in a Buddy Holly song. Chased it down, researched it, his wife on the copyright. It took months. She wanted a lot of money, and good for her for me to use that. I couldn't afford it. The publisher wasn't going to pay for it, so I moved on. Okay. Next slide. You know, here's something else. These are some other phrases or a piece of a poem. I had no problem using Yeats because it's in public domain. It's been past 100 years. And how we came to be is the story of women at different ages in their life. And because of those different ages, when we meet them as readers, they're dealing with very different things. And so I just love how Yeats described this woman, her soul in division from itself, climbing, falling, she knew not where, hiding amid the cargo of his steamship, her kneecap broken. That girl, I declare, a beautiful, lofty thing, or a thing historically lost, historically found. What a spirit in that girl. She's a survivor. Okay, let's get to plot, and I'm going to talk about this just for a little bit, and please feel free to jump on board. With your plot, this can also be called the narrative arc. And maybe you've had a publisher or an editor or an acquisition editor says, the arc's not there, or the arc's too reaching. What that means is there's something, and this triangle, I didn't invent this. This has been around forever and ever in describing the plot or the narrative arc of fiction, or including short stories. So that exposition, you're introducing the characters, the setting, the theme, you're hitting at it. And rising action, those are the different scenes within the novels. And your scenes could be, one whole chapter can be a scene, or you could have a scene break in the middle of a chapter. That's all that rising action until we get to the climax, okay? Everything you've introduced in the exposition and that rising action has all come to a head in the climax, okay? Think about what Stephen King's editor said. Watch a movie. You'll see that rise in action with each scene until it comes to the climax. We get to that climax, the height of the action, and then it begins to fall, the falling action. So whatever you introduced in the rising action is some way resolved. It could be resolved in a good way, in a negative way. It's got to be answered for the reader until the final resolution. Any questions about that? And again, pardon me, quickly, the plot of Sisters of the Undertow. Mandy, next slide. Okay, so this is really what the book's about. And it's a sentence that explains that narrative arc, what's going on. Sisters of the Undertow explores the complexities of sibling rivalry and fate when two sisters born 16 months apart discover life is not a matter of luck, but of choices made. There's the narrative, there's the plot in one sentence. Okay, your plot line, some things you might want to think about with your current work. Does the plot line fizzle and sag or leave huge holes that are never bridged? Did you introduce a character with a problem and never bring that character back or never address that issue in the manuscript? Is there a point to the story? In fiction, what are we trying to say as writers? Sisters of the Undertow, that life isn't fair? It's full of undertows? You have to expect it? And it's all how you get out of that undertow that makes the difference. Does the pacing fit the storyline? And what this means, if I'm reading, and I'm going to use the example of Jim Garrett, Miss Rogers is in the middle of reading one of his novels. I've read all his works. I admire him a lot, and he should be with us. And I've been on him for years, Kathy. He's going to figure it out. But he wrote this beautiful novel about an 18-year-old being shipped to a remote post in Vietnam as a soldier. He leaves small town, North Carolina, and he's in the middle of Vietnam. He's 18 years old. And occasionally he goes into town for patrol duty, which the town, of course, is all the native, the Vietnamese people. And he falls in love with the Vietnamese girl. Taboo, Romeo and Juliet, where he crawls through her window at night with the fear of being court-martialed and punished by death for that act, to be with this young Vietnamese girl, the enemy he's fallen in love with. And Jim and I have been beta readers for years. We exchange works. And when he wrote that, oh my gosh, I'm a woman. I have tears, I'm anxious. And he's just writing right through it like the guy's drinking a Coke, or having a sandwich. And I said, Jim, no, slow it down. This is so beautiful. You've got to tell me, do they turn on a light? Is it a candle next to the bed? Or is it in the dark? And how is he breathing? What is her breathing like? Is the curtain completely closed, or is it some kind of Venetian blind that there's a slant of light coming in, and it's a full moon and it shines on the lovers' faces? That's what's meant by those high impact scenes. You've got to slow them down, because that's what the reader loves. So, does the pacing fit the storyline? Do chapters build upon each other until reaching the climax? Does it have a cohesive beginning, middle, and end in the plot line? Next slide, please. Okay. Character development. Oh my gosh. Do we love characters? Not only characters in movies, but characters on the printed page. That's what readers fall in love with, the characters. They want to be emotionally connected. They either love a character or hate a character. There cannot be a wishy-washy character. So how do we do that? How do we make the reader feel something? Through communication, through the dialogue, internal dialogue, the exchange of that character speaking to another character, appearance and clothing. Oh, I love that. I love fleshing a character out and what they wear, because it says so much about their personality. Robert, I am hearing your mind spin right now. Clothes are important to people. It says something about their personality. The backstory of a character. Are we going to create empathy for this horrific character that hurts other people? Why does he or she act the way they do? What's the backstory? What are the ambitions or the goals of the characters? I just want a man to be faithful to me. I want to be a librarian. I want to be taken seriously as a woman. What are those goals? I want to learn how to read. I'm homeless. I want a place of warmth every night when I sleep. What are the ambitions? And then what are those character flaws? That's fleshing the character out. What's good and bad. Flesh each part of that character out until they become a human being. Now, is the character an everyman? How relatable is the character? And this is where we get into the universal themes of the human condition. So if you're writing about an experience in Jefferson, Texas, someone in Lebanon can read that in their language and go, oh my gosh, this person is hurt. I felt that. See, that's all about creating that intimacy with the reader. Loneliness, romance, sibling rivalry, rejection, disease. All of those things are part of the human condition that people, no matter where they live, can identify with. Okay, next slide. Characters and how we came to be, and very quickly, let's look at this. Okay, so this is a first person narrative. Okay, and the protagonist is a divorced middle-aged woman that really likes her wine, and she's very, very lonely. She's reached a point in her life where she doesn't know, who am I supposed to be now? The child I was raising went off to college. What is my role? What direction do I follow? So she's just had an unusual dinner with her neighbor across the street, a widow woman that survived World War II, who is also very, very alone. So the protagonist says, I stared at the house across the street, following the silhouette of Leona Monar Shupak as she moved from room to room, straightening and cleaning. She was a restless ghost in a mausoleum of lace doilies, crystal vases, and the bleeding heart of Jesus. So what do we know about Leona from this sentence? She's a compulsive cleaner to eat up the lonely hours. She's religious, and she's very restless. She's European because of those crystal vases and lace doilies. And it speaks of a certain generation, European. Now, our next character sketch, this is Kelly Sparring, also a divorced woman, been married several times. She loves to tell people what's the hardest thing about getting over the last man? Getting over the last man is all about getting under the new man. This is Kelly, okay? And Kelly Sparring, a 49-year-old with legs like two pillars of chiseled marble, beginning from the tattered strings of too short, too tight pair of Levi shorts and ending in a pair of black Lucchese boots, was rarely in a bad mood. The black tank top she was wearing screamed, you can't spell truth without Ruth. A headshot of Ruth Ginsburg was centered underneath the slogan. We know who Kelly is. Kelly loves life. She doesn't let loneliness get her down. Okay, next slide. So everything we've talked about until up at this point has been developmental editing. And when you're looking for an editor and you're thinking about payment, developmental editing is much more intense, process and takes much more time than copy editing. These are the correcting errors in grammar, spelling, usage, formatting, and style. Formatting and style may be based on a publisher's guidelines, and you know, you could go, if you're looking for a publisher now and you want to pitch that manuscript, you may go to their website, and there's going to there'll be a page that it says submission guidelines, and they may say what style manual they use. Okay, most in the industry use the Chicago Manual of Style, and not to be derogatory, but the Chicago Manual Style is like the Bible for the writer. Okay, you could do an online version. You could buy one, and it's going to tell you, you know, all how to punctuate, how to title, all these great things involved in copy editing. Okay, so this is just I hope to relax everyone. That was a fun slide of, don't be nervous about it, the editing process, but you do want to work with someone, either a beta reader, someone you hire that's going to respect your unique voice, but help you massage that manuscript to make it the best it could be. Okay, next slide. And one more. Okay, this is just a thing to relax everyone. And you've probably seen it a million times. Let's eat, Grandpa. Let's eat, Grandpa. Okay, gotta watch those commas. And the only reason why I use that slide is the reason why I used the one before. Breathe. A true editor is going to respect you, knowing that you've put your heart and soul into that manuscript. It's not about one-upmanship, because if it becomes one, a working relationship like that, adios. There's lots of great people out there that would like to receive your money and do a great job and respect you as a writer. Next slide. So here's some editing tips that I've learned along the way. Do not rush it. Do not rush it. Everybody works differently. I'm becoming older. I cannot, you know, I get those glasses on, and after a while my eyes become fatigued. So I'll work for 30 minutes and I'll give myself the gift of putting it down and taking my dog for a walk. There's nothing wrong with that, because it clears the head. Consider editing on hard copy. Some people like to do it, you know, through a Word doc, whatever. Sometimes I print it all out because I'm reading it out loud to myself and I'll catch some things. Hire a professional editor. And there's lots of them out there. They're trolling all over Instagram. Authors, you know this, on LinkedIn, they're going to send you a message, let me edit your book. I would approach this like I would approach hiring a plumber, architect. If I'm building a home, hire a professional. Say, send me a resume. I want to know your background, and send me some clients' emails. I want to hear what it was like working with you. Slow that whole process down, because I'll tell you, with my first novel, on so many different levels, I was just so excited to be published. I was extremely green. I had a beta reader, but I had met through a large writing guild in Houston. And the woman that ran that for years was fabulous, Fern Brady. She was lovely to me and supported me for years. And Fern has her own little publishing company now. She's just a great lady, very kind. And this has nothing to do with Fern, because I'm living in Mississippi. I said, I like your group. I want to work with y'all virtually. And she made that all happen. And she said, be cautious with the beta reader, get to know them. And I was just excited, you know, like a kid. And this beta reader, I read her work, took little notes on it. We agreed on a time that we would meet and talk on the phone with the work in front of us and our notes. And I went first, and you know, I was a teacher for a long time, so I'm careful with people's egos. You know, it's hard to put yourself out there, period. And so, you know, I began with all the positives, and I just thought, you might want to consider this. I didn't say do this, but you may want to consider this. And she said, thank you very much. I got busy with work and I didn't have time to read your book or your manuscript. It happens. There's charlatans everywhere. Don't make that mistake, okay? Take the time to fill someone out. Ask for a resume, ask for references. Just like I wouldn't hire a reader or a writer to fix my plumbing. Hey, they might be in a great mood and fun to be with, but they don't have the skill base. So editing tips, we looked at hire a professional editor. Let's look at the next slide. Always remember to proofread. And guys, this is, and I'm guilty of this too, you know, being rushed, super excited. And I just use this to take the anxiety out of editing and letting a beta reader into your writing world or an editor you hire. Remember this, the beautiful part of writing is that you don't have to get it right the first time like a brain surgeon, okay? And sometimes books are published and you have a great acquisition editor going through that novel, and you know there's goofs that show up on the first printing, and ouch, everybody feels that. You just send an email to that publisher. I've been fortunate with my publisher, and say, hey, there was some goof ups. Take it lightly. Everybody's doing the best they can. Take it with you know, we're in this together approach with the publisher, and say, hey, there were some goofs on page 220, third paragraph, second sentence. Can you correct that? And this is when you know if you're with the right people. And we're all subject to charlatans everywhere. I mean, not only as authors, every aspect of our life. And it hurts when we discover those people in our lives. But pay attention to that response. If they slam back a flaming email, don't publish your next book there. You deserve someone to treat you with dignity. This is my editor. His story, because I think it's such a beautiful story, and I hope it'll inspire all of you. And forgive my emotion, but all of you know me. Dr. Fuller didn't have a college education. He's from the New Orleans area. He had worked in shipyards, had a young wife and a young family, always wrote poetry. Katrina came, he lost everything, his job, his home, but not his family. There were grants available to go to college, packed up his family. He ended up getting a fellowship to a university in California where he got his PhD. He has traditionally published his works of poetry. He was my acquisition editor for Texas Review Press. I was fortunate to work with him on Sisters of the Undertow. And this is what a gracious editor he was. You know, our writing's personal. It's right there on our skin. And when he was editing the book, I'm worried. This is a brilliant man. He's got a PhD. I didn't know what he would say. And first he called me and he said, I'm going to send you the edits and I want you to refer to them on your document. And then when we could talk about it, either through an email or you could call me right back, Johnnie. I want you to be comfortable. And I remember in one of the things he said, this is when you learn to fight for your work, right? And fight's a loose term in this situation. He didn't understand, because he's younger than me, he didn't understand in the novel when the two sisters were put in different reading groups, all in one big room. So when I was growing up in Texas, and this is interesting, I thought it was just a Texas crazy thing. Readers have told me this happened to them in Missouri, elsewhere. So this was a big public school experiment in the late 60s, mid 70s about reading groups. So they put us all in one big room and they said, okay, this is the Bluebird group. Obviously, those were the students that had a higher reading potential, all the way to, blackbirds, crows. These people didn't think about the connotation of names at that time. And I never forgot it. I'm 58. I never forgot that. And I put it in that novel, and he said, I don't understand this. And he said, Jay, it's about singling people out and making them feel conscious of their deficiencies when they're children. And that follows them all their lives. And he goes, I got it. And that was the end of that. So Dr. Bruce Fuller is now the director of Texas Review Press. And to all my author friends, Texas Review Press is like a university press. It is always about short stories, novellas, chapbooks of poetry, and Southern fiction novel or literary fiction novel. The university presses recognize that the big houses, they're more commercial driven, okay? They have a lot of bills to pay. They got a lot of people working for them. They've got a big office. There's tentacles everywhere. But if you're writing something that is unique, and I think all of you are, a university press is a good place to go that will recognize that uniqueness. And the other thing about a university press, because it's all about distribution for authors, it's all about distribution. This particular press, along with Texas Christian University Press, it doesn't have to be Christian fiction, okay? It's just that university has had that name since its founding in the early 20th century. It's been around since 1928. Go to the website, you're going to see short stories, chapbooks, not to default Christian writers, but it's that not that linear in what they're accepting. Texas A&M, all these different university presses, they're all underneath an umbrella, which is managed by Texas A&M University Press. They actually have a real press with a warehouse. They have a workforce, okay, that visits different bookstores with the catalog saying, hey, have you read Cindy's latest novel? Let's look it up in the catalog together. They're going to discount your book for the indie bookstores that need that discount to survive, and they have a return policy. All these things are what are important to us in getting the book into the hands of readers. They supported me in when I enter a literary competition. They send my book. They do not pay my fee. They send my book. They'll write something on letterhead for me. They support me in that way. I can't say enough about university presses. They're all over this country and they're all unique in their platform. So I just want to encourage you, and this may be a way to go for you. But I'm grateful for my relationship with this beautiful poet who's been very kind to me. All right, so next slide. And this is me and Lily. Lily's not with us anymore, but she was my writing muse, my rescue dog. And I wish I still had that office. It's become a closet now. It's downstairs. It's old houses, 1857, 50, there weren't any closets then. So that's why I'm in the attic now. But that sweet animal, and this is why all dogs go to heaven. When I was writing those boohoo scenes, that sweet dog would put her head on my lap. So I know y'all are all animal lovers. Thank you for spending your Saturday morning with me. Are there any questions? I'm happy to try. I want to thank Claire and Kathleen because they were so kind to support a nonprofit I was working with, and they came and joined me. So they've been hearing this same PowerPoint several times, and y'all, they're still acting engaged. I
took notes.
So thank you.
Oh, Johnny, I can ask a question if I may. Can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am.
Let me refer to my notes. The falling action into the resolution. And I think, I told you I'm working on the insiders, and I'm at the point now where I thought I had ended it. And I think it needs more resolution, falling action, resolution. It's almost as if I have two climaxes in this story, which is interesting. And I'm looking at it and I thought, now don't be hasty. Don't look at you're at 83,000 words. I went in, edited, tightened it up, tighten it up, tighten it up. I want to punch all the way through. And I'm, and I realized, Lord, I overwrote this story beyond all. And so I've been reining it in. And so now I'm good. And it's like I've stopped. I'm getting the falling action resolution in terms of really what happens to the characters after the big drama that is going to affect their lives. Now they're older, but they're still sort of living with the consciousness of, this big dramatic thing. And so can you speak just a little bit more on the resolution, the fallout into the resolution? What can you speak a little bit more on what your idea of that is? And with regard to the resolution, okay, when and where does it stop?
I think that's a very good question.
Thank you.
And I'll do my best to answer.
Okay.
And pardon me, I'm just going to refer to Sisters of the Undertow.
Okay.
Because I know you're familiar with it.
Yes.
So obviously I had a very long overarching plot on Sisters, because that climax, which would be the hurricane, really doesn't come to close to the end of the novel. Okay. So, what I presented in this PowerPoint, that's like cookie cutter. Okay. Cookie cutter, no room for a different way of doing it. Okay. Now, the reason I did cookie cutter plot and the very simple rising, falling action, resolution is it's a generic way of explaining plot. And today in fiction, and I think it's probably the last 20 years, that's been played upon so much. So that climax of the hurricane, and then our protagonist goes home and she's in bed, and we're bringing back the beginning of the novel. So this is how a introduction of some rising action can be brought back to the end of novel. There's that Nancy Drew book. There, she's in her sister's bed where that novel began. However, it's not that cherry on top ending. It's not a clean-cut resolution in that the protagonist is saying, sister, I love you. Please come home. Now, we could say that's a resolution in that the protagonist had some self-discovery and discovered how much that sister meant to her after the baptism of sorts of the hurricane. All that water scene, see it as a huge baptism of Kim is no longer that nasty, keep people away from me because I can't handle it. I don't even love myself. How can I love you? So that baptism of the hurricane brings her to the sister's house, but it's not a clear-cut resolution. The protagonist has softened and she realizes, so that's resolution, that my sister means something to me. I love her. I want her home. But the sister doesn't show up and everybody hugs and life goes on. So that's a more modern thing. If I were writing within the romance genre, they would not let me get away with that. It would have to be a clean cut resolution, right? You know this from all the genres. So if you're writing upmarket, literary fiction, you know, when you're being playing more with the literary elements, it doesn't have to be so clean cut, cherry on top, let's all walk away. How We Came to Be certainly was that second novel. Okay. Now, Claire, what you might want to think about, and when you go back and you read this novel and you're wondering if you filled the holes. So you're reading and you might on a separate piece of paper, wow, this was a bomb. This was another bomb. Write down the bombs. Write down when a character just, he or she completely reveals, this is who I am. Does that ever come back and resolve one way or another? Doesn't have to be positive, doesn't have to be the cherry on top, but is that resolved? So think about, you know, in another way, Claire, to help yourself, I've even taken that triangle and made a graphic plot for myself and wrote in scenes or those bombs. And thinking, okay, did this all come to a head in the climax and it was resolved one way or another, leading toward a resolution? And that resolution, again, doesn't have to be, you know, kumbaya, everybody loves each other, because you know what? Life just isn't. Life just isn't like that. Wish it were. And it's okay, you're the author. If you wanted to have the cherry on top because I wanted the big hug, everybody loves each other and How We Came to Be, yeah, I had that. So it's up to you, but you know you have that option. You just want to be careful of a bomb that explodes and you never touched it again. You never said, wow, what happened with Joe saying, this is what my first wife did to me.
Yeah.
Doesn't have to be positive, but it has to be addressed.
Okay. Thank you.
Welcome. I hope that helped.
Oh, yes. It all, I mean, you're just so dynamic to watch. And academic and charisma at the same time. I don't know how you do it.
Claire, I'm not always like this. I'm with my tribe this morning. I got my crown on, which makes me feel like I'm omniscient. Right? It's that crown. I'm being a beacon. My light is shining.
I got a lot out of this. I really did. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
I just want to say, Johnnie, that I'm a slow learner in a lot of ways. So it takes me 2, 3, 4, 5 times of hearing something that it really becomes learned. So hearing you once or twice or 3 times, it just kind of puts those things into place. So I don't think you can hear you enough. It was wonderful.
Well,
And as what you were saying, Claire, one thing I've found for me is I set it aside for a couple of days and then I come back to it and with fresh eyes. And I read it. I read everything I write aloud. And if it doesn't sound like something I would say, I change it. I think reading aloud is so important to find your own inner voice. But I think you know what to do. But I think Johnnie has the best advice ever. Thank you so much, Johnnie.
you're welcome. Yeah. Kathy, it's good. Both Kathys. We've got 3 Kathys.
It's just been crazy this week. I mean, just crazy trying to keep up with, Kathy R, Kathy R, Kathy
I
M.
know who Kathy are.
So crazy.
You can call me Brown.
Brown?
How's that?
Oh my goodness.
That's my maiden name.
That's how come I have the nickname Kat, is because in college there were so many Kathys. And so Kathleen, Catherine, Katie, and then I became Kat. So I always know how people know me. If they call me Kathy, they knew me when I was a little girl. If they call me Murphy, we went to high school together. And if they call me Kat, that's in my college days. And, I can tell how long I've known people by what they call me. Yeah. So anyway.
Johnnie, I've loved hearing your voice today. I don't get to hear you read enough. And that was just such a pleasure for me.
Look what I got yesterday. I got our new manuscript. I'm so excited.
This is for thank you. This is for my sweet friends and I here with us today. Let's not go beyond this because I need to touch base with a couple of people Monday. And I think you've known this. I signed a contract yesterday for Hannah.
Congratulations.
Thank you. So
Congratulations.
yeah, it was a lot of emails ping-ponging back and forth. What is this? What is that in the contract? And so I'm really excited. I care. It's different for me. It's a different novel in that I guess we could call it an upmarket thriller. It's about human trafficking along the border. Hard book to write. Just because of the subject matter, but thank you all for being there each step of the way. I just love you all. I love your writing. Very blessed to be in this family.
Congratulations, Johnnie, on Hannah
Congratulations.
and signing that contract. And I kept saying Sisters was your best work. I haven't read this one. But there are so many big things coming down the pike for you. I can just feel it.
I think we all, just for me, I just want people to read it. Don't care about the money. There's, you can't chase that money dream. It'll break your heart every time. But just if people read it and get something from it. So.
Who's the contract with?
It is going to be with someone under that Texas A&M University umbrella, TCU Press. Dr. Fuller with Texas Review Press kind of worked with me on this. They have some things, a few little issues going on at TRP that will all fall in place. They had their director leave, and she was an older lady. COVID had been very difficult for her. She had a death in the family, and she's returning back to New Mexico, a place she loves and can be with her friends and family. So I'm happy for her. So Jay's got a lot of things to juggle, and I didn't want to lose my audience. So we worked on some things, and I'm moving over to TCU. They're a bigger press. They've been around longer, but I still get to be within that family with the distribution. So, and we need to keep this mute, because by the time I did this yesterday with really signing it and sending it to him, I didn't have Monday morning time to send an email to other publishers. And I don't want to offend anyone, because, you never want to burn a bridge, and in saying that, any of y'all can send me an email or call me, and I'm always happy to tell you what I've learned in this latest experience, and encourage you with what you're doing.
Congratulations.
Johnnie, you are with an excellent publisher. I've been following that. I have been following TCU Press since I moved to the Dallas-Fort Worth Metroplex in 1992. I would read about them every Sunday when the book section in the Fort Worth Star-Telegram was 4 pages. And there was always books being reviewed, and by all the big reviewers around, the big ones.
Well, you know what's been interesting? I don't have a literary agent. I have one with the first novel, and we will never go there. Okay, that's water under the bridge. I'm a smarter girl. I've got battle wounds. Okay, but anyway, but I don't want to publicly denounce anybody. People need to do what they need to do. I'm just looking for something different. So in this, and I'm telling you this to encourage you in finding a publisher. This was the book for the first time when I began pitching it with the query letter, the synopsis, and doing the research, that the New York houses looked at it and actually read it without me having an agent, which is significant, and I'm very honored by that they even read it. But when it all came down to it, and I knew this, and it's okay, I've accepted this as who I am as a writer. Johnnie, it's not commercial enough. You would need to glean this, and this out of it. Well, guys, I can't do that. I can't do it. And I understand their point of view, and that's okay. I can't, I just can't do it. You're asking me to do something I'm not capable of doing, and that's okay. And I was happy for the little bit of their time and encouragement, but it's not an easy business, but there are great publishers out there that love smart, intuitive writing. There's a place for you. So.
And that's what this Writers Club is. It is a conversation where we can share insight into the process of publishing too, because besides sharing, how you write your books and all these things, authors are wanting to know, how do I find an agent? How do I get my book published? And I think it's basically different for every single individual depending upon their writing. I'm going to tell you, as the founder of the Pulpwood Queens Book Club Reading Nation, that it doesn't matter to me who publishes your book at all. It can be self-published, it can be small publisher, it can be university press, it can be the big ones. What matters to me is the story. If you've got a story to tell that I haven't heard before, or that's going to enlighten, entertain, and educate, those are the stories I want to hear. And that's what I had to bring around back to my main focus of who I am. So you all know I just represent myself in my book club now. Everybody
Well,
understand that?
Kathy, your mission, it's all about story,
Yes,
and everyone's included because it's the story, right?
right.
Not the glitter. It's
No.
the story, the words. That's why people follow you, and that's why you have this longevity.
Well, I'm going to keep it going as long as I can. And thanks to all of you all's support. It's been amazing. And I can't thank you. This has been the hardest year of my life. I've gone through a lot, and I'm going through a lot right now. And I will tell you that if I stick to my original mission when I first started this book club, and I look back of all the things that I've accomplished in my 20, now going on 21 years, that is my focus. It's never been about the money for me. It's never been about the fame or the power or whatever people think. To me, you are the talent and the stars. The writing I do is only to promote you. That's my next book. The Pulpwood Queen Goes Back to School. I just learned another really hard lesson. We're being tested all the time. And life is a choice, and you have to make choices on what is the most important thing. And it's me, service to others, and sharing these incredible stories. I could care less about anything else. And I've just got to remember that. And I have to say it as a mantra every day. So I cannot thank you all for your support with me. And I'm having a battle right now. So you just keep me in your prayers. And I'm going to be promoting your books like crazy. That's what I do. And I just love you all so much. And I'm so excited to read the new books. I mean, we just, Kathy's got her new book coming on board, and we just had the full week with Breathless Bubbles and Books with Kathleen, and, Mandy and I are working hard. I mean, we did a fun Zoom yesterday. Crazy. We do the craziest things. And, but today, Johnnie, you are our focus. And I think about you coming up to me. Was it at Words of Music? And you go, Kathy, I really want you to read my book. And I met you a couple of times, and I go, I know. I've got so many people coming at me all the time. Read my book, read my book. But when I did, I'm so happy to have you on board. And every time you win another award or you get another TED Talk or whatever, I am so excited about all of your accomplishments, everything that everybody's been doing. And people are paying attention. The Pulpwood Queens is growing. While we were talking today, 4 people joined. 4 people joined the Pulpwood Queens. And
great.
I just cannot, and I think my Kathy L. Murphy YouTube channel has quadrupled on viewers watching the videos. The Google Analytics are showing that more and more people are going on the website, and Mandy and I've got some really big things. We've got a new calendar events that Mandy did up on our website that will drive people more there to see all these things we're doing. And we've got some really exciting stuff coming up, don't we, Mandy? Do you want to say anything, Mandy?
Well, I've just been listening. I love that. That was a great writing class. I mean, it was really, really, it's good. I mean, it's so funny because it's like how Kathy said, you hear these things, in different things, and as a writer, some of these,
Well, you're picking it up organically from your reading. You're picking up all those patterns, all those techniques.
Yeah.
So that's quite a compliment to how you learn, when you can pick that up organically by reading other authors.
It's funny too how you have a feeling, and you'll just know, even if you know the author, you feel like you know them, and you can sort of see how they write, like where they are when they're writing.
And I
Kathy,
think
I chased you in New Orleans at Words and Music.
yes, yep,
That was a long time ago.
yep.
And you might have been with me, Kathy Ramsberger.
We both
That New Orleans event is great, and I'll be so glad when it comes
Oh,
back.
me too, me too.
Because Words and Music, a movable feast. Mwah. Yes,
But
it
they've
is.
combined now with the,
Well, the woman that started that, her husband passed away in 2020.
yeah,
And Megan Holt, who helped her for years and years, she teaches English, PhD at Tulane. She took it over. And it was virtual last year, but she wants to bring it back in November. She's a beautiful young woman. Beautiful young woman.
you all need to get there. If you can get to
Oh.
Words and Music and the Tennessee Williams, those are my favorite. New Orleans is my favorite city. And to go there, I'm going to be working really hard on trying to get a panel of authors at both those events, because it's the best of the best. It's like the Pat Conroy literary, events, the best of the
I'm
best.
going to, when we get off, Kathy, I will send you Megan. I will introduce you and Megan through email.
Because I want to, as soon as this COVID thing lifts up, I want to start going around to the country. I'm going to be working on what I used to do was I do the Pulpwood Queen Presents, and I bring my authors to, Nashville, to Tennessee Williams. I've been doing this, bookmarks, Miami Book Festival, Texas Book Festival. I've been doing the Pulpwood Queens, but this has just thrown everything off kilter. But my whole goal is to get our books in the hands of more readers around the world. And working on that, I'm doing tomorrow a big interview with Bollywood and Books, Lovelace, in Fairhope, Alabama. We've been friends for years. She's worked for FEMA. She worked in India on all these humanitarian things. She's been all over India, and her new blog is going to be amazing. And Teresa Backen, who has got the new podcast, Sean Farjady. I mean, I'm making friends with all these wonderful ways that I can get you into new places. But Breathless Bubbles and Books is important because that's West Coast, people being brought into, we need to be all over. So I have more podcasters and more bloggers coming this year. That's why our event's going to be a week long, right, Mandy, our virtual online event. And just so most of you know this, you need to encourage everybody to sign up to be a member and to subscribe to YouTube, because you can get the full week for $99, and everybody pays this year. Everybody pays, so why not pay for 90? That's 100 authors and bloggers for $1 a piece. You'll get to hear them all. I can't think of a better value. And so that's why people are signing up like crazy. And we're in 20 foreign countries now. And I'm making more and more international connections. And so we're growing. And it's all because of you. It's all because of everything you guys are doing. And I can't thank you enough. And anytime you want to have a conversation or a special Zoom meeting, get with me. We'll do it. I have a lot of time sitting in my little house in the woods, and I've cleaned out all my closets. Okay. So I'm done with that. I keep trying to find things to do. I'm working on Mandy's paintings, our collaboration in between my thing tonight. Oh, tonight is our book and film club. Robert Waltney had to take off for another Zoom meeting, but Robert and I are coming back tonight to host the book and film club, and we're doing Christopher Guest films. And if you've never watched a Christopher Guest film, we both found out we're big fans. He can quote almost every line from these movies, and we laughed so hard last week. I'm telling you, we did Waiting for Guffman, which is my absolute favorite one of them. But this tonight is best of show, and we want you to bring your pets, and we're gonna have a lot of fun with it. And 6:30, so if you need a Zoom, I'll send it to you. But Johnnie, we can't thank you enough. This is tomorrow. I'm starting this. I finished Kathy's book, And oh my gosh, I was telling Mandy all about your book. It's so incredible. And so if you don't get me your book soon, 2022 is getting full. And so that's why she sent me, I said, send me the manuscript because I got to have it now. I think we've already picked half of our books of the month. So, now it's just going to be bonus books and international books. And we've got so many coming on board. But thank you, Johnnie. This will all be posted on YouTube, okay?
You're welcome. And just as a reference, later on, I've got a PowerPoint on how to write a query letter.
We should have you come back and do that because most people don't know how to do that, Johnnie.
Yeah, that I find that's always very helpful for people.
This somebody said, I went to go to this thing and I want to know how to write. And this club is about that. I know Kathleen's going to come forward and do something for us in the future on the Writers Club. I know that I reached out, Bobby Kornblit is coming. She's been teaching writing for a long time through universities and everything. She said, I would love to do one for you, Kathy. So Mandy, keep those people in mind. But anything that breaks down a certain, like you did with editing, Johnnie, anything that breaks down, I would love to, Marley did the wonderful talk about the everything going on in New York. She'll be back next year, as will Robert Gray and the book report, Carol Fitzgerald. We've got the Dolly Parton people coming on board this year. We've got more podcasters. We've lost a few, but we're picking up even more. So it's going to be the biggest event we've ever done. And it's going to be virtual and online. Y'all here in Texas, my doctor has me at home for another year. It's virtual and online. I can't go anywhere. So I've got the wrong blood type. I've got, the heart and diabetes issues and the age issue. And if you don't know your blood type, if you have a rare one, you're more likely to get the bad symptoms from this. You need to check it out. Laura McNeil and I have had the exact same experiences, and we're going back and forth. She's out in New Orleans and one of my favorite New Orleans authors. But any other questions for Johnnie before we leave for the day and get to writing? I'm working on my next book. Anything you want to share, Johnnie, or questions?
Don't let anybody put down, take away, steal your unique gift, your voice as a writer. No, never. Move on.
I will share my
story. Chop, chop.
That's great. That's great advice.
I will share with you when I signed with Warner Books, which went on, Time Warner, and was published by it changed to Grand Central when Hachette bought it out. And I got a huge advance. They don't do that at all anymore. I was encouraged to hire an editor, and I did, and I was given a former Random House editor, and I had to fire her because she was putting in her own story and my story, and I was like, whoa, wait a minute, and I lost all the money from that. So you do your homework before you ever hire anybody, and don't just go by that resume, because I learned, I think I lost 8,000 or 9,000, something like that.
Well, and I have another story. What you said, you stick to your voice. Suzanne Hudson, who y'all all know, critique my short stories, and I love her. Like, I have so much respect for her. But it's my stories. She just didn't get Eva. She, the first read through, she told me that, she just wasn't impressed with it. She said it was too far of a stretch, and that it would make a great dark humor piece. I told her, and I love her, respect her, and I'm still I wasn't finished with her, but I said I would rather poke both of my eyeballs out with a coronavirus infected fork than turn Eva into a humor piece. And she just laughed, and so we got over. It's like I said, I respect your opinion on that. And then after it was finished, and I worked on it again. Like I took everything she said, even though I wasn't, and I really looked at each sentence, like every sentence. I thought, how could this not have hit her? It makes me cry, And then
it's either she's not reading,
well, and it's just like
kind of works, or it's not part of her experience.
Yeah, and if y'all read, yeah, or it could have been a lot of things. Because one time when I redid it, I didn't even send it back to her after I did it because it had already been professionally edited. She was just giving me the critique because I respect her so much. Like, I love her.
I love her.
And The Dark of the Moon is still one of my favorite novels ever.
Her and Joe Formichella, they're the best, man.
When I finished the other edits that she gave, critiques that she gave me, and then I started, and it was published, and I started getting the reviews and emails from people, I sent them to her. I just said, hey, Suzanne, this thought you might want to see it. Oh my God, I love it, because she was like, dang, I think, what was her, dang, ... I guess I missed something, and then a smiley face, and then how proud she was of me.
Yeah.
And then she reread it, and she was like, this is really, yeah. So it's like, just because you don't agree, if it's somebody that you do know and you respect, just because you don't agree, don't automatically cut them off. Listen to what they're saying. But then still, if it seems like they're not listening to you, and they don't, then find somebody else. But stand up like that. Stand up for it's your story. Those are your characters. It's your voice.
I also think when you go with a smaller publisher, they take more invested interest in your story. Because when I published my first book, I told the story about when I was a kid, we'd go creeking. And you guys know what that is. I had to explain it. My New York people didn't know what the hell I was talking about. I said, we walk through the big back pasture, go down to the creek, and we walked down the middle of it till we got to Eureka Lake, and then we walked back. It was like 8 or 9 miles. And I said, but I didn't call it, I called the creek by all the locals was called Turd Creek. And I put Turd Creek, and they go, you can't put that. And I said, that's what, it's a memoir, nonfiction. I go, that's what everybody calls it, because all the wastewater from the Eureka, Kansas, that was processed went into this creek. And it's clean. It's clean. There's no toilet paper or anything in it. But all the locals knew that it fed into the lake. And so it was called Turd Creek. And they made me change it. They made me change that to just say creek. Don't say Turd Creek, because we want to put it in our Christian novel. And I said, well, you don't think Christians know what turds are? And I didn't fight it, because you got to pick your battles.
Right.
But now in my next book, I'm going to have Turd Creek in. Okay, I'm going to have it in there because that's what it's called. And and it's my story, and you got to stick to it. But I've gone back to school. But when you're first published, you're just so wanting your story to be told that you kind of compromise a lot on things. But I didn't compromise with the editor. I fired her, and I was told, you're not going to get your money back. And I go, I don't care. And I just lost that money. And but now I've lost a lot of filters. And I think as an older writer and a one that's reading so many books, it's crazy how many books Mandy and I are reading right now. But I think you look for those unique things. I think it's hilarious when people use the local colloquialisms, and it makes the story more authentic to me. But I'm not one that censors,
Kathy, can you use Turd Creek as your subtitle?
Well, that'd be a good one, wouldn't it? The Pulpwood Queen goes back to school, and my journeys down Turd Creek. No, I don't think I would. But
Up Turd Creek without a paddle.
My cousin Terry. I wish he was here right now, because he would be dying over this. Because we both, had the same growing up experiences, and I've got to tell him that. Up Turd Creek without a paddle. That might be a good thing, because I've been up Turd Creek this year for sure. And
Turd Creek survivor.
I may have to have a t-shirt made. Oh my God. Oh my God. Well, that's the Kansas coming out of me. Sorry, y'all. But Robert Gwaltney said the other day, and he goes, there was a thing that said, what was the thing you most wanted to be when you were a little kid? I said, oh, well, my next door neighbors were the Mary Annies, and they were Catholic, and I loved them, and we played together, and there were a ton of them, and every Friday they had International Cooking Day, and one of the little girls in the family wanted to become a nun. So I decided I wanted to become a nun too. And Robert, after all those posts I did when I was cleaning out my closet with all the wigs, he goes, I don't think they're going to let you wear a wig if you're a nun. And I said, my question is to anything that makes a statement like that, Robert, I put it up there on Facebook, is who made up that rule? Who makes up these rules that tell you that there can only be 8 in a book club, or, nuns can't wear wigs? Well, they don't wear head coverings anymore. Why can't they wear a wig? I said, if I was a nun today, I'd be wearing a wig. But that's just me. I'm a kind of an unusual.
If you'd been Catholic, you'd be a nun wearing a wig.
I'd be wearing a wig. And, I celebrate all religions of the world. I'm not Catholic, but I have friends that are every denomination and not. So, but it's all about our story behind the story. And Johnnie, before you leave today, first of all, I want to thank you, because you gave me, and I'll cry about this, you gave me the greatest gift that any author has ever given me, and you gave it freely. You read my book out loud at Girlfriend Weekend. And when I wrote that book, I had Doug Marlette he compared me to Annie Oakley and the Alamo and all this stuff. And I thought he was being facetious because he was a political cartoonist. And I said, did you mean that? He goes, Kathy, you're a one of a kind. You're like Willie Nelson. You're like whatever. And I said, what do you think of my book? And he goes, I think it's the best. Everything, it's the best. But who I went to for my beta reader was Johnnie Bernhard, who wrote Midnight in the Garden of Good and Evil. And he was one of my best friends. But what you may not know is John, when he wrote Midnight in the Garden of Good and Evil, that book was published without one edit.
Crazy.
I only have had 2 authors in all my years of picking Pulpwood Queens that they printed the book verbatim. The only thing they did is Vintage, which was an imprint of Random House, is they took out the N word in his book because they didn't, but it's what was said. It's a nonfiction book. It's what was said, but they found it, just upsetting, and they took it out. But like on the 17th printing, they put it back in. Because it's been published like 134 times. I don't even know how many times. But John, I said, John, is my book a sophomore try at trying to tell what my mission is in life? And he goes, no. He goes, your book is important. And he goes, don't ever let anybody tell you it's not. And I thought, well, you're a Random House New York Times bestselling author, Doug Marlette. That's why it's important to have other people, because when you're writing, you don't always realize, I have authors always saying, I just don't really see myself as an author yet. And that's why I say, you're here, aren't you? I mean, I don't invite people to my table unless they're an author. And I think this conversation that we're having people like Johnnie come forward and giving me, really, truly, you gave me the greatest gift, because I was so shocked. I don't know if you saw my face, but she goes, I want to read to you. And you read from my book. And I was like, nobody has ever done that. And I thank you for it, because it gave me validation of my life. Thank you.
Okay.
So I'm sorry I'm tearing up, but it meant a lot to me. And you all mean a lot to me. And I know Kathleen got emotional when she was on her talk, but this is a catharsis type thing of sharing our stories with each other. And I think by us being real and showing us that we're not always, people go, oh, you're the Pulpwood Queen. I go, I'm just a small town Kansas girl that books saved me. So I've had a tough week. So I thank you all for being here, and I thank you, Johnnie. So
Well, cheers. Cheers to a better Saturday.
Yep, happy coffee. I got my coffee here, so
Yeah.
thank you. And Lavasa, I've been drinking this coffee since Johnnie sent it to me after a girlfriend weekend. I can't tell you how great this coffee is. And I want to share with you my brand new French press. It's a thermos French press.
I was just saying, it looks serious. Good for you.
It's a Poliviar, and it was like $30, something like, it wasn't expensive. So anyway, I'm a coffee drinker. So thank you all. We will join, be back tonight. If anybody wants to come to our film club, we're going to be laughing because
Best in
Robert
show.
Rodney has a great sense of humor.
I'm
And
coming.
he thinks, he goes, people think I'm very serious, but I have a really weird sense of humor. We have the exact same, and we are now getting into the groove. We laugh so hard. I almost wet my pants last week. He can just give those Parker Posey quotes or Corky St. Clair, and I love him. So
It's 6:30 tonight, Central Time.
6:30, Best in Show. Come. When I get off, I'll send all of you the link if you want to
Do it. Yeah,
Okay.
that movie, because I don't like dogs at all.
I
That's one of my
know.
favorite movies of all times. Best in
Well,
show.
I'm
It's
sitting
just so
here.
funny.
I'm sitting here with 3 cats, but I love dogs. I love all critters, turtles, everything, Mandy. I
Oh.
love.
I'll be there. I'll see y'all.
Okay, but
I'm
God
not going to
bless.
miss it.
Thank you.
Y'all, I'm busy packing. I have to move out of this house. So this is part of a plan for retirement full-time in Texas. So
You're coming back to Texas?
we're just in about 3 to 4 years, we sold this house and we own a little cottage, which Claire and I will laugh. I call it a closet. We're moving into a closet down the street.
Where is
I
it?
love it.
Are
Who are
you?
you moving in your closet with?
My husband, my German husband, of course.
Thank you.
Is it going to be near me? Are you going to be close?
Well, we have that place, and y'all, that's a great writers retreat. That's an invitation. So it's an hour and a half west of Kerrville.
Oh, you're in the hill country.
Yeah, and it's on. I think it's 65 acres. It's a new house. It's not a glamorous chateau, but everything works, and it's furnished. You have to bring your groceries or whatever. Wear your boots because you're out in the country.
I'm a Kansas girl, man. I'll be there in my FJ. But is that where you just went to see the storm damage?
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
So we have that, and hopefully, if everything works out, we bought a property in Rockport area, outside of Corpus.
Yeah,
Build a place, so maybe we'll have best of both worlds. But the place out in the hill country, it's remote. Okay, hour and a half to the nearest grocery store, no library.
I could bring my camper. And Mark, if you do a writer's retreat, I am so there.
Well, I've been thinking about it for a long time, how much fun it would be.
Good.
Yeah.
But
I'll come.
Have enough beds for everyone.
Let's
That
do
would
it.
be fun.
Let's do
Yeah.
a Pulpwood Queen writer's retreat. Yeah, future thing. And
It
we're
would be
working on some.
wonderful.
We're working on some trips, you guys. Pulpwood Queen trips. I've got a whole group of Pulpwood Queens that are ready to go. So
I'm ready to go.
yep, I've got a bunch of people wanting to go, and Stephanie is working up a trip for us. So get ready.
Okay.
Do a Decorate Ornate Pulpwood Queen European trip. So
Okay.
oh, God bless. Safe
Okay.
move. Safe
I
move.
just wanted to say thank you again. I was so shocked Tuesday that I don't think I gave you a proper thank you, but I hope you found my
Oh,
Facebook post And I know you're going like that, but you don't know. It's the highest honor. And
Oh, you make me cry. You guys, I'm really tearful. I've been in this cabin too long. I've been here so long that I would just go, anybody. I'm going with Heidi, my best friend from home, and my two other childhood friends. We're going to Arkansas in June. And we don't know if we're renting a houseboat or a cabin in the woods, but we're all going to be together. And that's the only thing that's getting me through this horrible ice storm spring experience I've had. And I'm still waiting on roofers. I mean, it's just been a
It's going to get so much better.
I know it is.
It
I'm
will.
working on your art. I'm working on your art today. So thank you, everybody. I know you need to go. I love all of you. I love you so much.
Mandy, thank you for joining us.
Thank you,
Thank you for
Johnnie.
joining us.
You're
Bye-bye,
welcome.
everyone. Have a
You,
beautiful
Johnnie.
Everybody.
Thank you.
Kathy,
Thank
Kathy.
you, Johnnie, for all time.
Thank you, everybody. Bye-bye.
Bye.